start with the first page, which is page 3 of your SAJ.
Yeah.
And the first bit is a summary of the PKP stuff. What does IMR stand for? What substances how do we come into contact with substances? So, that's contact, ingest, and inhale. When is something called an allergen? When is it an antigen? What's an antigen? What's an antibody? Now, you might need to Google those terms just to reinforce what they are. Also, if you have a look on, if I share the screen, there's a heading called allergy sensitivities and background information on the portal. So this information is very light on in your PKP notes. And I think it's worth having some background knowledge, even if you've just touched it for a little bit. So it's information that's come from the Australasian Society of Clinical Immunology and Allergy. And it's actually not a bad website. It explains what an allergy is and what happens when we have an allergic reaction. It explains allergy versus intolerance versus sensitivity. And it explains that the allergy is when the immune system is reacting to proteins in food or other substances like pollen or nickel or pet dander that can result in the symptoms of itching, coughing, wheezing, vomiting, all of those things. And at its most, it's anaphylaxis. Celiac disease is not an allergy, but is an autoimmune disease. It affects about 1% of the population, possibly more, who are undiagnosed, where the immune system reacts abnormally to the protein gluten, and it attacks and damages the lining of, I'm pretty sure it's the small bowel, the small intestine. A food intolerance, on the other hand, is not based as an immune response from a medical point of view, and it doesn't show up on your allergy tests. And the symptoms that you get from a food intolerance is headaches, migraines, hives, nausea, and other gut systems. So food sensitivity and hypersensitivity are sometimes used interchangeably instead of intolerance or allergy, Common food allergies. There are 9 food allergies in Australia. 9 common ones that cause 90%. So you've got cow's milk, egg, peanuts, tree nuts, sesame, soy, fish, shellfish, and wheat. More than 1 in 10 1-year-olds have food allergies. So to me, that's saying maybe we're introducing too diverse a diet to our 1-year-olds who maybe should be on breast milk. So if you keep them on breast milk, you're going to tend to have less allergies, although it is still common for babies to have a reaction to mum having dairy. It's still really common. And there's lots of foods mum has, like garlic and coffee can go through the breast milk, and kids have problems with that. Common food intolerances. So we don't really know who's got food intolerances because lots of people say they have a food intolerance that's never been diagnosed. So we don't know if it's true or not true. Lactose, amines, sulfites, salicylates, glutamates, FODMAPs, and gluten. Now, I'm going to get you guys to do some work on this lactose, amine, sulfites stuff. So you'll have an assignment on this. So then they talk about gluten intolerance, and they say there's a lot of Australians are not actually celiac or allergic to wheat. They buy gluten-free and they reduce their gluten, but they what this site is saying, there's probably an overestimate of the prevalence of gluten intolerance. So there's probably people who think they're intolerant to gluten, but it could be other things that are causing the intolerances. And when they give up gluten, they're also giving up lots of the FODMAP foods, which have been known to trigger lots of irritable bowel symptoms. So it could be that they don't have a problem with gluten, but they have a problem with the FODMAP stuff. So it's important, because this is now in medical mainstream language, because this is now a key phrase, it's important that we have FODMAP resources in our kit. So when clients come in and say, oh, yeah, I'm on a low FODMAP, you guys as practicing kinesiologists know what we're talking about and what that means. So that's what you and Aaliyah will build. And then that'll become part of the kit for the next lot of students. So that'll be great. The testing, so some of this also came from the Choice website as well. They were pretty scathing of all the natural tests. They were saying, oh, they're unreliable, they can't be blah, blah, blah. And certainly kinesiology got smashed in that as well. So what I've included here is what the medical process people can follow if they need to follow, or if they've already been. This is what they're doing. And the gold standard for food testing is a temporary elimination diet followed by a food control challenge to identify dietary triggers. Now, we can really support people in that process, because we can help them work out what they can bring back in quicker to identify what the trigger is, so they don't have to do months and months of elimination. They can pin it down quite quickly. And then because anaphylaxis is so important, we really don't want to create situations that make people unsafe. I have included all that information there about what an anaphylactic reaction is and how to deal with it. Use some of that information, go and Google the terms allergy and what is it? Allergen, antigen, and antibody, and get your head around what they mean. So what happens if the immune system forms antibodies to some of its own body's tissues? So that's your autoimmune. And I would like to say, give an example of a couple of autoimmune illnesses, diseases that you could get. What tissues could the body get allergic, antibodies to, that could create problems? And we avoid allergy and hypersensitivity or sensitivities. We use IMR. Why do we test a substance against every one of the IMR modes? And we know it's because there may be only one mode that goes, but that still shows that there's a problem, and because the modes show different aspects of stress in the body. What is the function of the immune system? There you go. So that's page 3.